My dear friends, we live in a world where deleting old files from our phones gives us peace, but deleting old versions of ourselves feels painful. We keep holding on to our old mistakes, old fears, old habits, and even old versions of who we used to be, as if they define us forever. But let me tell you something from my heart. You are not your past version. You are a masterpiece still being painted. And every morning, life gives us a reset button, a brand new chance to delete what no longer serves us. But instead of pressing that button, most of us choose to replay the same old stories. The old self whispers, "You can't change, you failed before," and we believe it. Today, let's learn how to press delete, not on our memories, but on the mindsets that no longer serve our growth. Because the truth is, if you don't delete your old self will delete your future. We often live our entire lives on autopilot, carrying within us a version of ourselves that was built long ago, shaped by experiences, opinions, mistakes, and fears that may no longer belong to who we are today. But the truth is, that old version of you is not your identity. It's just a chapter you've outgrown. Recognizing the old self is the most powerful step toward transformation, because until you see it clearly, you'll keep living through it unknowingly. The old self hides in subtle corners of your personality, in your habits, your reactions, your beliefs, even in the tone of your inner voice. Sometimes it appears when you say things like, "That's just how I am," or "I can't change now." That's not your truth speaking, that's your outdated programming defending itself. You see, the old self doesn't want to be seen because once you recognize it, you weaken its control over you. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a house you've lived in for years. Over time, old furniture, dusty memories, and broken things start to fill it up. You become so used to the clutter that you forget what the house once looked like. You start walking around the mess instead of cleaning it. But once you switch on the lights, once you recognize what's really lying in each corner, you suddenly realize how much unnecessary weight you've been carrying. Recognition is that light. When you pause and look within, you begin to notice patterns. Maybe you react to criticism the same way every time. You shut down, you get defensive, or you feel worthless. Maybe you keep choosing comfort over growth, or people who repeat the same hurtful cycles in your life. These patterns are not coincidences, they are fingerprints of your old self. Every reaction you have, every repeated mistake, every fear that stops you from moving forward, all of them are echoes from a version of you that was shaped by your past experiences. The problem is, most of us don't take the time to truly observe ourselves. We keep running, blaming circumstances, people, luck, and even God without realizing that the true obstacle lives inside. The old self is like a shadow, always following you, but only visible when you stop running and turn around. That's why silence, reflection, and mindfulness are so essential. They help you stop long enough to actually see your own shadow. Recognizing the old self doesn't mean hating or rejecting who you were. It means looking at your past with compassion. You did the best you could with the awareness and strength you had back then. The purpose of this awareness isn't to punish the old self, but to thank it. Because every wound it carried, every mistake it made, taught you something that brought you here. You can honor your old self while still deciding it no longer defines you. Sometimes people fear that if they let go of their old identity, they'll lose themselves. But my friends, the truth is, you're not losing yourself. You're shedding layers that were never you, in the first place. You're not deleting your essence, you're deleting your limitations. The real you is not buried under failure, fear, or doubt. It's buried under the stories those emotions built. When you recognize that, you begin to separate what's you from what's just your past. So start by asking yourself gentle but honest questions. What habits no longer serve my peace? What beliefs stop me from growing? What fears make me repeat the same old story? What image of myself do I still protect even when it hurts me? These questions are like mirrors that help you see your old reflection clearly. Because recognition is not just about noticing the old self, it's about realizing that you are more than the sum of your old experiences. You are a conscious creator capable of rewriting the script. The old self thrives on unconscious repetition, but the moment awareness enters, it loses its power. You can't transform what you deny, but once you bring it into the light, transformation becomes inevitable. So, take a deep breath and be honest with yourself. Who are you when no one is watching? Who do you become when life challenges you? And is that person a reflection of your highest potential or a replay of your oldest fears? The moment you recognize that your default responses are just habits of the old self, you've already begun to delete it. Because awareness, pure loving non-judgmental awareness, is the first step to freedom. That's where change truly begins. Not by forcing yourself to be different, but by truly seeing what needs to go. Just as a gardener doesn't curse the weeds, but removes them with patience, you too must observe your inner weeds, your doubts, your anger, your fears, and gently uproot them one by one. The garden of your mind deserves that care. When you start to recognize the old self, you stop identifying with it. You start saying, "That's not me anymore," instead of, "That's just how I am." And when that shift happens, when you can finally see your patterns as patterns and not personality, you reclaim your power to change. Recognition is the moment you realize that your past may have shaped you, but it does not have the right to define you. And my dear friends, the day you truly recognize your old self is the day your new self is born. We don't hold on to our old self because we love it. We hold on because we're used to it. The mind, just like a child, clings to what feels familiar, even if it causes pain. We might say we want to change, evolve, become better, but deep down, a part of us fears what that change will demand. We fear losing our comfort, our identity, our known world. The emotional attachment to the old self is not logical. It's deeply psychological. It's the mind's way of protecting you from the unknown, from uncertainty, from the discomfort of starting again. Have you ever noticed how people sometimes stay in relationships that hurt them, jobs that drain them, or habits that slowly destroy them, and yet they say, "I can't leave." It's not that they can't. It's that they've built emotional roots in that soil, even if it's dry and cracked. The old self feels like home, even when it's haunted, because even a painful familiarity feels safer than stepping into the mystery of who you could become. We humans have this strange connection with our pain. We nurture it, feed it, and make it part of our story. This is who I am because of what I've been through. And while it's true that our experiences shape us, they should never imprison us. The problem is that the emotional attachment to the old self convinces us that growth is betrayal, that if we change, we'll lose something essential, we'll no longer be ourselves. But the truth is, growth isn't betrayal, it's evolution. Just as a snake must shed its skin to stay alive, We too must let go of emotional attachments that suffocate our potential. Think of it like this: your old self is like a childhood blanket. It once gave you comfort, warmth, and safety. But as you grow, carrying it everywhere begins to look silly, even heavy. Yet many of us still carry our emotional blankets from the past: the need for approval, the fear of rejection, the constant replay of what if I fail. These emotional attachments make us hesitate when life invites us to transform. The emotional mind doesn't care if something is good or bad, it only cares if it's known or unknown. That's why change feels uncomfortable. That's why starting over feels terrifying, because your nervous system interprets unfamiliar as unsafe. So when you decide to change, your old self resists. It whispers, "Don't go there. You've never been there before." It tries to drag you back into comfort, even if that comfort is destroying you slowly. Many people say, "I want to delete my old self." But when the process starts, they panic. They miss their old habits, their old routines, their old thoughts, not because they were happy with them, but because they were attached. It's like cleaning your room after years of clutter. At first, it looks messy, uncomfortable, almost overwhelming. You pick up something old, a memory, a mistake, a relationship, and your heart aches. You don't know whether to throw it away or keep it. That's what emotional attachment feels like when you start growing. It's messy. The key to releasing that attachment is compassion. You can't force your old self out with anger or shame. You have to lovingly tell it, "Thank you for protecting me when I didn't know better. Thank you for helping me survive, but I don't need you anymore." This gentle acknowledgement transforms resistance into release. You stop fighting your old self and start understanding it. And once you understand something deeply, its hold over you begins to dissolve naturally. We must also remember that emotional attachment to the old self often comes from fear of identity loss. You've been telling yourself a story for so long. "I'm shy. I'm unlucky. I'm not good enough." That even though that story hurts, it's your story. Deleting it feels like deleting yourself. But in reality, you're not deleting your story, you're rewriting it. You're saying, "This chapter was real, but it's not the whole book." There's another reason we stay attached to the old self: the validation it brings. The old self thrives on the sympathy, the attention, or even the predictability that comes with its patterns. When you play the victim long enough, people recognize you as one, and subconsciously, you start deriving identity from that. If I stop being this way, who will I be? If I stop complaining, what will I talk about? You see, attachment doesn't always come from love. Sometimes it comes from habit, ego, and identity. But my friends, transformation requires courage. The courage to disappoint your old self. It means breaking up with comfort, letting go of old versions of yourself that everyone knew, but that no longer reflect who you are becoming. Some people around you won't understand your change because they are emotionally attached to your old self too. They liked you as you were, predictable, familiar, convenient. But you must choose between being understood by others or being true to yourself. It's okay to feel fear, confusion, or even grief as you detach from your old ways. Growth is not a happy, colorful butterfly moment at first. It's a dark cocoon where you lose shape for a while. You might cry, doubt, or feel lost. That's the emotional cost of deleting your old self. But if you stay patient, that discomfort turns into clarity, and that clarity turns into freedom. The emotional attachment to your old self will keep trying to pull you back. like waves pulling you into the ocean of your past. But you must become the swimmer who keeps moving toward the shore of your potential. Every time you choose growth over comfort, every time you forgive yourself instead of blaming, every time you speak kindly to yourself instead of harshly, you loosen one more chain that ties you to who you used to be. So when your heart resists change, when it says, "But this is who I am," smile gently and whisper, "No, this is who I was." The moment you say that with conviction, you've already taken one powerful step toward freedom. Because emotional attachment doesn't disappear overnight, it melts away with awareness, patience, and love. And one day, you'll look back and realize that what once felt impossible to release now feels distant. Like an old photograph of someone you used to know. You'll smile not with regret, but with gratitude. Because you'll understand that you didn't lose yourself in the process of letting go. You simply found the version of you that was always waiting underneath. Forgiving yourself is perhaps the hardest, yet the most liberating act you can ever perform. Many people talk about forgiving others, letting go of the hurt caused by someone else. But very few speak about forgiving the person who stares back at you in the mirror. The old self survives not because of the mistakes you made, but because of the guilt you carry for making them. That guilt becomes the invisible chain that ties you to your past, no matter how far you try to run from it. Forgiveness is not about erasing what happened, it's about releasing the emotional charge that keeps it alive inside you. You see, every one of us has chapters in life that we wish we could tear out. Moments where we hurt someone, fared miserably, or made a decision we now regret. The mind keeps replaying those moments like an endless film, whispering, "If only I had done this differently, if only I had known better." That whisper slowly becomes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a human who made a mistake and start seeing yourself as the mistake. And that's where the poison begins, when guilt replaces growth. The truth is, you can't heal while you're still punishing yourself. You can't move forward while you're still chained to who you were. Forgiveness doesn't mean saying, "It's okay." It means saying, "It's over." It means acknowledging that your past decisions were made with the awareness you had at that time. You didn't know then what you know now. You didn't have the clarity, the maturity, or the strength that experience has given you today. And yet, we judge our past self with the wisdom of our present self. That's like blaming a child for not running a marathon. Sometimes, people find it easier to forgive others than to forgive themselves. They say, "I can let them go, but I can't let myself go." Why? Because deep down, we believe we don't deserve forgiveness. We think punishment equals redemption. So we punish ourselves silently, through self-doubt, through guilt, through the constant replaying of our failures. We say we've moved on, but we keep visiting the same memory again and again, watering it with regret, giving it new life every day. Forgiveness means stopping that ritual. It means looking at your past not as a prison, but as a teacher. You cannot delete your old self until you forgive the one who created it. The old self feeds on unresolved emotions. It thrives on shame. Every time you criticize yourself for who you were, you're feeding that old version. But when you forgive, you starve it. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's an act of courage. It takes strength to look at your wounds without judgment and say, "I forgive you for not knowing better. I forgive you for falling when you were trying to learn how to walk. I forgive you for being human." Let me give you an image. Imagine you're walking with a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents a regret, a mistake, a guilt. You might not notice it at first, but over time, that weight starts breaking your back. Forgiveness is like opening that backpack and removing the stones one by one. It doesn't happen all at once. Some stones are easy to throw away, others you'll hold, cry over, and then let go slowly. But with each stone gone, you walk lighter, you breathe freer, you move closer to the person you were always meant to become. People often say, "But what if I hurt someone? How can I forgive myself when I caused pain?" The answer is by taking responsibility, not by carrying endless guilt. Responsibility is active, guilt is paralyzing. If you've done wrong, make amends. Apologize sincerely, change your behavior, and then let go. You can't rewrite your past, but you can honor it by becoming a better version of yourself. True repentance isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. The best apology you can give to your past is living your future differently. Forgiving yourself also requires compassion. You have to speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer to a friend. If your friend came to you crying, saying, "I messed up, I hurt someone, I failed," would you say, "You're worthless"? Of course not. You'd say, "It's okay. You did what you could. Learn from it and move on." But when it comes to ourselves, we become our own harshest critics. We hold on to the past like a badge of shame. Compassion breaks that cycle. It allows healing to happen from within. Remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without being controlled by it. When you forgive yourself, your memories don't vanish, they lose their sting. They transform from wounds into wisdom. The pain that once crippled you becomes a teacher that guides you. And one day, when you look back, you won't feel shame, you'll feel gratitude. Because those mistakes were the soil where your strength grew. There's also something deeply spiritual about self-forgiveness. When you forgive yourself, you align with grace, that divine understanding that we are all works in progress. Just as a sculptor doesn't hate the stone for being rough, life doesn't condemn you for your imperfections. You are being shaped, refined, and polished through every mistake. Every flaw you heal becomes a light for someone else lost in the dark. Forgiveness is freedom. It allows you to live in the present instead of being haunted by the past. It allows you to see yourself not as broken, but as becoming. Without forgiveness, the old self remains alive, replaying the same stories, the same guilt, the same pain. But once you forgive, that old version begins to fade like smoke disappearing in the wind. So, take a moment, place your hand on your heart and say it softly. "I forgive myself." You might cry, that's okay. You might feel resistance, that's okay too. Keep saying it until your heart believes it. Because forgiveness is not a one-time act. It's a practice, a daily choice to not let yesterday define today. And when you finally forgive yourself, you'll notice something miraculous. You'll start smiling again, not because everything is perfect, but because you've made peace with imperfection. The chains will fall away, the guilt will dissolve, and in that stillness, you'll realize the person you've been waiting to be has been waiting for you to forgive yourself all along. From the moment we are born, the world begins to label us. Those labels come from parents, teachers, friends, society, and over time, they become the mirror through which we see ourselves. You're smart. You're lazy. You're too emotional. You're not confident enough. Every label, whether positive or negative, sticks to our identity like a sticker on glass. Eventually, we forget that beneath all those stickers, the glass itself was always pure and transparent. Letting go of old labels is one of the hardest yet most necessary acts of liberation in the process of deleting your old self. Because as long as you wear those outdated names, you'll keep living someone else's definition of who you are. The truth is, labels are just mental shortcuts, convenient boxes that people create to make sense of you. They might have made sense once, but just like clothes, they stop fitting as you grow. The tragedy is, most people keep wearing the same labels long after they've outgrown them. They live trapped in words that were never truly theirs. Maybe as a child you were told you were shy, so even as an adult, when you want to speak up, that label whispers, "This isn't who you are." Or maybe you failed once, and now you walk around with the label, failure, written across your mind, even though you've learned so much since then. Labels limit, they shrink infinite potential into a single word. When you keep repeating those words, consciously or unconsciously, they become self-fulfilling prophecies. You start living according to the label rather than your capability. You stop exploring who you could be because you're too busy defending who you were told you are. Imagine a butterfly that still calls itself a caterpillar because someone once said, "You'll never fly." That's what labels do. They trap you in an outdated version of your identity. And here's the saddest part, many of these labels don't even come from cruelty. They come from misunderstanding. Someone might have called you lazy not because you lacked discipline, but because you lacked motivation or purpose. Someone might have called you weak, not realizing that your sensitivity was actually your strength. But words stick, especially when we hear them repeatedly. Over time, we begin to internalize them, and those external judgments become internal beliefs. Think of how many times you've said to yourself, "That's just how I am." But is it? Or is it how you've been told you are? The danger of labels is that they give you a false sense of identity. You start confusing patterns of behavior with the truth of your being. But your true self is fluid, adaptable, capable of endless evolution. The problem is, the old self fears losing those labels because they provide a sense of stability, even if it's painful stability. You'd rather be someone you recognize, even if that someone isn't your best self, than face the uncertainty of transformation. Releasing labels doesn't mean denying your past. It means refusing to be defined by it. You might have been a procrastinator, but you're not destined to stay one. You might have been insecure once, but you're not bound to remain that way. Every time you say, "I am this," you're setting a boundary on your growth. The most powerful words you can ever say to yourself are, "I used to be, but now I'm becoming." That simple phrase shifts your energy from limitation to expansion. When you begin to delete old labels, your mind resists. It tries to protect what's familiar. It will say, "But that's who you've always been." You must respond, "That's who I was, not who I choose to be now." You see, identity is not fixed. It's a decision you make every day. Every thought you choose, every habit you build, every belief you challenge, these are acts of rewriting your self-definition. Letting go of labels also means letting go of the fear of judgment. Sometimes we hold on to old identities because we worry, what will people think if I change? Maybe they've known you as quiet, and now you want to speak boldly. Maybe they've known you as careless, and now you're disciplined. Maybe they've known you as broken, and now you're healing. When you start evolving, the world will try to remind you of who you were. But remember, their memory of you is not your reality. Their version of you is outdated data. You don't need their permission to upgrade. Some people will even resist your transformation because it challenges their comfort. When you grow, you silently remind others that they can grow too, and that makes them uncomfortable. So they'll try to pull you back with words like, "You've changed," as if that's a bad thing. When someone says that, smile and say, "Yes, I have, because I was meant to." Growth is the very purpose of life. Everything in nature changes: the seasons, the tides, the trees. Why should you be the only thing that stays the same? You must also learn to recognize the labels you've given yourself unconsciously. Not all labels come from others, many come from self-judgment. Maybe you labeled yourself not talented enough after one failure. Maybe you labeled yourself unlovable after one heartbreak. These self-created identities are even harder to delete because you've repeated them for years. But remember, if you can program your mind with those words, you can also reprogram it with new ones. Replacing old labels with empowering ones is an act of self-respect. Instead of "I'm not confident," say, "I'm learning to express myself." Instead of "I'm unlucky," say, "I'm creating my own opportunities." Instead of "I'm broken," say, "I'm rebuilding." The moment you change your language, you change your energy. Your subconscious mind listens to every word you speak. So speak growth, not limitation. Deleting old labels also requires self-awareness. Pay attention to how you talk about yourself in casual conversation. How often do you use words that keep you small? "I'm bad with people." "I'm always late." "I'm not creative." Every time you say those things, you reinforce that identity. Begin to catch those patterns. Replace them with language that allows possibility. "I'm working on improving." "I'm getting better at this." "I'm exploring new parts of myself." And don't just stop at mental labels. Challenge emotional ones too. You might have labeled yourself as the strong one, and because of that, you never allow yourself to cry or ask for help. You might have labeled yourself as the funny one, so you hide your pain behind laughter. You might have labeled yourself as the serious one, so you never allow yourself to be playful. Labels can even cage the best parts of us by making us one-dimensional. True freedom means giving yourself permission to be everything: serious and silly, strong and vulnerable, bold and gentle. Letting go of labels is also about forgiving the people who gave them to you. They spoke from their own limitations, not your truth. They saw you through the lens of their own experiences. Once you realize that, their words lose power. You can bless them, thank them for being part of your journey, and release them without anger. When you finally remove those labels, you begin to experience something extraordinary: silence. The noise of self-judgment fades. You stop constantly trying to fit into boxes. You stop performing for others and start living for yourself. You start discovering new abilities, new passions, and new versions of your personality that you never knew existed, because they were buried under layers of false identity. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and see someone new, someone lighter, freer, more real. You'll realize that you were never shy, lazy, broken, or unworthy. You were just covered in labels that no longer belong to you. Underneath it all, you've always been enough. So, take a deep breath and peel those labels off one by one. Say to yourself, "I am not who they said I was. I am who I choose to become." That's the essence of deleting your old self, not changing who you are, but finally seeing who you've been all along. Reprogramming your mind is like rewiring an old electrical system. It's delicate, slow, and sometimes sparks fly. But it's the only way to light up your life again. You see, every thought you think, every word you speak, and every belief you repeat to yourself shapes the reality you live in. Your mind is not a mirror, it's a projector. Whatever you feed it, it projects outward into your life. If you keep saying, I can't, the world will show you reasons why you can't. If you keep saying, I'm unlucky, life will present situations that prove you right. The mind doesn't care whether a belief is empowering or destructive. It simply obeys the commands you give it. So, if you want to delete your old self, you have to start by rewriting the code of your inner programming. Most of us inherited our mental programming from childhood. We didn't choose our first thoughts, our first fears, or our first self-definitions. They were installed into us like software. Maybe you grew up hearing, you're not smart enough, money is hard to earn, or don't dream too big. Those phrases became invisible lines of code running in your subconscious, quietly dictating your behavior as an adult. You might have tried to change on the outside, working harder, chasing goals, pretending to be confident. But if your inner script is still negative, you'll always find yourself returning to the same results. It's like trying to install a new app on an old operating system. It just won't run properly until you update the system itself. Reprogramming begins with awareness. You have to become the observer of your thoughts. Notice the language you use when you talk to yourself. Are you kind or cruel? Are your thoughts empowering or limiting? The old self thrives in automatic thinking, those repetitive, negative loops that play without you realizing it. To break free, you must interrupt those loops with conscious language. Instead of saying, I always mess things up, replace it with, I'm learning how to do better. Instead of saying, I never get what I want, try, I'm open to receiving what I deserve. It might sound small, but language is the tool that shapes your reality. Every word you speak carries vibration and energy. When you constantly affirm your weaknesses, your subconscious mind programs itself to maintain that reality. But when you start feeding it new affirmations, consistent, positive, believable statements, the mind begins to shift. At first it will resist. The old self will whisper, this isn't true. You're lying to yourself. But keep repeating. The brain is designed to adapt to repetition. What you repeat, you believe. What you believe, you become. It's important to understand that your subconscious mind doesn't understand logic. It understands emotion and repetition. That's why simply thinking positive once or twice doesn't work. You have to feel the new belief as if it's already real. When you say, I am confident, don't just say it. Imagine it, visualize yourself speaking boldly, walking tall, smiling naturally. Feel it in your body. The stronger the emotion attached to a thought, the faster the subconscious accepts it as truth. This is how people change their lives, not through luck or sudden miracles, but through conscious reprogramming. They choose new thoughts every single day until the new patterns replace the old ones. It's not magic, it's neuroscience. The brain has something called neuroplasticity, which means it can physically change its structure based on what you think and practice. So when you think differently, you're not just being motivational, you're literally rewiring your brain. But here's the challenge. The old self doesn't go down without a fight. It's like an outdated software that keeps running in the background, trying to override your new input. When you start affirming positivity, your old self might throw doubts at you. This won't last. You've tried before. You're not that kind of person. That's okay. Expect resistance. Resistance doesn't mean failure. It means the old system is being challenged. Stay patient. Reprogramming isn't instant. Just like a tree doesn't grow the day it's planted, your new thoughts need time to take root. Also, remember that reprogramming is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about training your mind to see possibilities instead of problems. It's not saying nothing is wrong, but rather, even if something is wrong, I have the power to respond differently. The old self reacts, the new self chooses. That's the real power of mental reprogramming. The power to choose your response instead of being enslaved by your old conditioning. You can begin by building small rituals that support new beliefs. For example, every morning when you wake up, instead of checking your phone, take a moment to affirm 3 powerful truths. I am evolving. I release what no longer serves me. I am open to becoming my best self. Say them out loud. Write them on paper. Feel them. Over time, this daily repetition becomes mental hygiene, just like brushing your teeth. But for your mind, visualization is another key. Close your eyes and imagine yourself as the person you want to be: confident, peaceful, focused, kind. See yourself handling challenges with grace, walking into opportunities with courage. The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It believes whatever picture you show it consistently. That's why athletes, performers, and leaders use visualization before every big event. They're not just dreaming, they're reprogramming. Surround yourself with environments that reinforce your new identity. If you're trying to delete the old self that was full of negativity, stop feeding it with negative content, gossip, and toxic energy. The brain learns through imitation. If you keep surrounding yourself with people who live from fear, you'll stay in fear. But if you spend time with those who live from growth, gratitude, and purpose, your subconscious starts to align with that vibration. And remember, reprogramming isn't just mental, it's also physical. Your body stores emotional memories. When you change your posture, your breathing, and your facial expressions, you send new signals to your brain. If you sit slouched, your body tells your mind, I'm tired, I'm defeated. But if you sit upright, breathe deeply, and smile even slightly, your mind begins to mirror that energy. That's why movement, meditation, and mindfulness are powerful tools. They reset your emotional and mental software together. Over time, as you practice reprogramming, you'll notice subtle changes. You'll catch negative thoughts before they spiral. You'll respond calmly to situations that used to trigger you. You'll start to feel lighter, freer, more intentional. That's how you know the new code is being installed. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that the things that once drained your energy no longer have power over you. That's not luck. That's reprogramming at work. The beauty of reprogramming is that it doesn't erase your history. It transforms your relationship with it. You no longer see your past as proof of limitation, but as evidence of how far you've come. You stop identifying as the person who suffered, failed, or broke down, and start seeing yourself as the one who rose, learned, and rebuilt. That shift in perception is the moment your old self truly dies. So start today. Speak to yourself with the respect you deserve. Catch your old thoughts and gently replace them with better ones. Train your mind to focus on solutions instead of problems, on progress instead of perfection. Because the truth is, You become what you repeat. And if you keep repeating growth, kindness, courage, and faith, your new self won't just be a dream, it will become your reality. Reprogramming your mind is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you truly are before fear, before doubt, before limitation. It's about returning home to your natural state of clarity, confidence, and peace. And once you reach that state, you look back and realize you didn't just delete your old self, you upgraded your entire life. The people we surround ourselves with are not just companions. They are mirrors, amplifiers, and sometimes even silent architects of our destiny. Every conversation, every energy exchange, every circle we choose to sit in either nourishes our growth or numbs it. If you truly wish to delete your old self, you must take an honest look at the company you keep, because your environment, physical, emotional, and social, shapes the frequency you operate on. You cannot plant the seed of your new self in the soil of your old surroundings and expect it to bloom differently. Most of us underestimate the power of environment. We think we can change while still living among the same influences that built our old habits. But growth doesn't work that way. You can't heal in the same energy that made you sick. You can't rise if you're still surrounded by people who are comfortable crawling. Sometimes, the only thing standing between who you are and who you could become is the energy you keep allowing around you. Your surroundings feed your subconscious more than your conscious mind ever realizes. Spend time with people who complain constantly, and soon you'll find yourself echoing their negativity without noticing. Spend time with people who talk about ideas, solutions, and dreams, and suddenly your thoughts will begin to expand too. The human mind is contagious. It catches emotions, attitudes, and beliefs like a cold. That's why it's so vital to choose your atmosphere wisely, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Think about it. If you put a fresh flower in dirty water, it will eventually wilt no matter how beautiful it was. But if you place that same flower in clean water and sunlight, it thrives effortlessly. The flower didn't change its nature. The environment did. You are no different. Many people think they are weak or unmotivated, when in reality, they are simply living in an environment that doesn't support their strength. Surround yourself with growth energy, with people, spaces, and influences that make you feel alive, hopeful, and capable. Seek out those who inspire you to think higher, to love deeper, to act bolder. You'll know them by how you feel after being with them. Do you leave conversations feeling drained or renewed, heavy or light, confused or clear? Your emotions are the most accurate compass for recognizing which energies are helping you grow and which are keeping you small. But sometimes, it's not about people doing something wrong. It's about realizing that certain relationships or environments were meant for a previous version of you. Maybe they were right for who you were, but not for who you're becoming. It takes courage to admit that. It takes maturity to bless certain connections, thank them for their role in your journey, and move forward without bitterness. Deleting your old self often requires emotional decluttering, letting go of not just old habits, but also old associations that reinforce those habits. When you start walking the path of growth, you might notice something strange: loneliness. That's because transformation often begins in isolation. The caterpillar doesn't grow wings in a crowd, it does so in a cocoon. You might have to walk alone for a while until you find the circle that matches your new vibration. But that temporary loneliness is not emptiness, it's purification. It's life clearing space for people who will match your new frequency. Don't rush to fill that space with the same old energies just because the silence feels uncomfortable. The silence is sacred. Energy doesn't lie. You can feel it even before words are spoken. Some people drain you not because they're bad, but because they're carrying unresolved heaviness that spills into your energy field. Some people uplift you without saying much, simply because their presence radiates peace and authenticity. Learn to notice the difference. Protect your energy the same way you protect your phone battery. If something is constantly draining it, unplug. But growth energy is not only about people, it's also about the physical spaces you inhabit and the content you consume. Look around your room, your home, your digital world. Does it reflect who you're becoming or who you were? The things you see daily, your surroundings, your social media, your routines, all shape your mindset subtly but powerfully. If your space is cluttered with chaos, your mind will mirror that. If your feeds are filled with negativity, gossip, or comparison, your thoughts will start vibrating at that frequency. The mind absorbs everything it's exposed to, so be intentional about what you let in. Create an environment that supports peace and purpose. Keep reminders of growth around you, books that inspire you, quotes that uplift you, sounds that calm you. Spend time in nature where energy flows purely and freely. Silence is one of the most powerful growth environments because it reconnects you to your inner wisdom. Meditation, reflection, solitude, these are not luxuries, they are necessities for transformation. When you start living in an environment of growth, something beautiful happens. Your inner voice begins to shift. You start hearing possibility where you once heard doubt. You start speaking kindly to yourself because the energy around you no longer demands self-defense. You become more open, creative, and courageous, and slowly your outer world begins to mirror your inner transformation. Be mindful, though. This doesn't mean you cut everyone off or isolate yourself in superiority. It means you practice conscious association. You can love people from a distance. You can support them without absorbing their energy. You can care without carrying. Being in a growth environment doesn't mean living in a bubble. It means maintaining boundaries that protect your peace while still practicing compassion. You will know you're in the right environment when you no longer feel the need to shrink, when you can speak your truth without fear of judgment, when your ambitions are not mocked but nurtured, when laughter feels healing, not hollow, when silence feels comfortable, not awkward. These are signs that your surroundings are aligned with your evolution. And one last truth, sometimes you must become the source of growth energy for others. Maybe you're the first in your circle to awaken. Maybe you're the one who starts choosing positivity while everyone else is stuck in complaint. Don't lose heart. Stay consistent. The energy you hold will eventually ripple outward and attract like-minded souls. Growth energy is magnetic. When you embody it, the right people, opportunities, and environments will naturally find you. So, ask yourself today, who am I allowing into my mental space? What kind of energy am I inhaling every day? Does it feed my peace or poison it? The answers to those questions reveal more about your future than any plan or goal ever could. Because in the end, your growth is not just about deleting the old self inside you. It's about deleting the old environment around you that keeps trying to resurrect that self. Once you surround yourself with light, you'll realize that you were never truly broken. You were just planted in the wrong garden. And when you finally find your right soil, your right sun, your right energy, you won't just grow, you'll bloom into everything you were meant to be.